The member has spoken to this. Once. Carleton, Mississippi Mills. Okay. Member from Carleton, Mississippi Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill 14, the Nonprofit Housing Cooperatives Statute Amendment Act, is a good bill, and I will be supporting it. As a caring society, we have a moral obligation to help those who need help, whether it is long-term help for people who have disabilities or short-term for people who are down on their luck. Surely in Canada, which is a compassionate society, which is a land of plenty, we can help people to get the basic necessities of food and shelter so they can live with dignity. Nonprofit housing cooperatives do just that. They help people who need help. They provide affordable housing at a rental rate that matches the ability to pay. There are many cooperative housing developments in my riding. I find them to be very attractive. They are creatively designed, well-built, well-maintained, and well-kept by residents who take pride in their homes. They fit in well with the rest of the community and are a welcome part of the community. I suspect there is a need for even more cooperative housing as a consequence of the economic downturn of 2008, from which Ontario has never really recovered. The high unemployment, 600,000 people have no jobs, pay freezes or lack of pay increases because of the slow economy, and scarce or reduced company profits, manufacturing job losses because of many plant closures, increasing cost of living caused by rapidly rising electricity costs, rising gasoline and home heating costs, rapidly rising property taxes, rising user fees and charges on services and products that consumers use every day. The government is taxing people more and more. They are desperate for money, and they are desperately looking for more money. And where are they getting it? From the taxpayer. The taxpayer who is tapped out. They keep going back to that same well again and again and again. The government is making people poorer. Let me give you a couple of examples of this government's desperate acts in their desperation to find more money, and where they are going to get this money from. From the taxpayer, of course. In the spring of 2012, Agricor sent letters to 4,500 farmers telling the farmers to repay the money given to them by the government in 2003. That was 10 years ago, to help them survive the mad cow disease disaster. After 10 years, they think it is okay to send a letter and say it is time to give the money back. I don't think so. Imagine the gall and indifference, the disrespect and the insensitivity. That is a sign of a truly desperate, uncaring government. This is wrong. This spring, the government is thinking about amending the Highway Traffic Act to collect unpaid traffic fines going back up to 40 years. Can you believe it? Once again, extracting scarce dollars from the same tapped-out Ontarians. And another desperate act by a desperate government. And again, it is wrong. This is morally wrong, this is morally corrupt, and Mr. Speaker, there is nothing so disrespectful and immoral as a corrupt government. In that context, Mr. Speaker, this wonderful and historic place of governance, Queen's Park, could sadly be referred to as a den of iniquity. The intent of the changes offered by this bill are good. Good. The bill will move co-op tenure disputes from the court system to the Landlord-Tenant Board, where all other housing disputes are settled. The Landlord-Tenant Board is the appropriate place to resolve housing disputes. These disputes will include rent arrears, late payment of rent, willful damage, and illegal activity by tenants or interfering with other tenants' enjoyment of their property. The ministry has estimated the cost of resolving these co-op disputes in the courts at $3,000 to $5,000 each, and pegged the annual legal costs to co-op members of approximately 300 cases heard every year in the courts at about $1 million. Some disputes not provided for under the Residential Tenancies Act would still be resolved between residents and co-ops through the courts, including violation of no pets provisions or failure of a co-op member to perform such duties as clearing snow or cutting the lawn. This act will help the 125,000 people who live in the province's 550 nonprofit housing co-ops. There are a few shortcomings in the act, and these should be addressed at committee after the bill passes second reading. Number one, it would seem reasonable to me that simple problems like no pet violations and failure to shovel snow or cut the lawn could be more appropriately resolved at the Landlord-Tenant Board rather than go to court. Surely that common sense change could be made. Number two, I think it is unreasonable to charge a filing fee of $45 or any amount to a person who lives in co-op housing. People live in co-op housing because they have low income. People that have low income need all their scarce dollars for other necessities such as groceries. It is therefore not reasonable to charge them a fee. The fee should be done away with for these tenants. Number three, landlords' rights must be considered. Protection against nuisance complaints should be provided. Nuisance complaints could increase what is already a backlog or waiting list to get to the Landlord-Tenant Board for resolution of disputes. Waiting a long time for a resolution of a dispute is a problem for tenants and landlords. It is important that disputes be resolved in a timely manner. Number four, Bill 14 changes the way a co-op's board of directors relates to its members, most notably how the board of directors revoke membership and occupancy rights of its members. At the moment, membership and occupancy rights may be terminated only by a majority of the board of directors of the cooperative at a meeting of that board. Bill 14 changes this provision by reducing the complexity of the process. Under Bill 14, a member of a co-op could have their membership or occupancy rights terminated by only a resolution of the board, and this resolution could be passed outside of a meeting of the board of directors. Further, as proposed, there is no appeal to this decision of the board of directors unless the board of directors has a specific bylaw that allows for appeal. This means a member of a co-op could be kicked out by a minority of board members voting by email with no appeal of that decision. This is certainly a change, and a change that could mean a member of a co-op that faces eviction may not have due process or a chance to defend himself or herself. These problems can be discussed at committee. Hearings should be held so both landlords can make presentations to the committee.
The Minister of Rural Affairs is having a little chit-chat with the gallery. We know that's unacceptable, and I notice the three members in that area are becoming very loud. So you might want to cut it back a little bit. Thank you. Pardon me? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thanks for your cooperation. Go ahead.
These problems can be discussed at committee. Hearings should be held so both tenants and landlords can make presentations to committee with their concerns and recommendations. I am sure these small problems can easily and quickly be resolved. It is ironic that it is the prorogation by this government that stopped this bill last year, when all three parties supported it and wanted it to pass 6 or 8 months ago. This government has prevented much of the needed changes included in this bill from being delivered to the people who have been waiting for and who need these changes, the people who live in co-op housing. What a waste of time by this government. It is pure, selfish political opportunism at its worst. What a shame. It is time to end the shame. Let's get the job done. Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Member from Kenora, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, I did apologize. I can't help but stating what I think is the